Ideas would shape Christianity for good or ill in all the centuries to follow. Augustine. He came from a comfortable family in North Africa. Famously, he once said, "Give me chastity, but not yet." Augustine had been familiar with and troubled by the pleasures of the flesh before converting. In his Confessions, he wrote,
"From the muddy concupiscence of the flesh and the hot imagination of puberty, mists steamed up to cloud and darken my heart, so that I could not distinguish the white light of love from the fog of lust. Both love and lust boiled within me."
After his conversion, Augustine lived the ascetic life in a small community before going to Hippo in North Africa, where he became a priest and eventually a bishop.
He didn't leave his ascetical ideals behind him. He himself and his clergy lived together in a clerical monastery that he created, where everything, even items of clothing, were shared in common. And in teaching the faithful, the ideal of Christianity he put before them was really a monastic one.
Soon after the sack of Rome, Augustine wrote The City of God, which introduced the tension between earthly and divine values.
Augustine developed a long analysis of two cities: the city of God, which is the community of people who truly love God and are chosen by God ultimately to join the saints in heaven, and the earthly city made up of people who love self first and seek happiness in this world. And the church, though it contains both types of people, because not all Christians truly put God first, nevertheless manifests on earth the heavenly city.
The two cities were created by two kinds of love. The earthly city was created by self-love, leading to contempt for God. The heavenly city was created by the love of God, leading to contempt for self. In fact, the earthly city glories in itself. The heavenly city in the Lord.
More far-reaching were Augustine's views on the nature of sin.
There were Christians in the 5th century, very traditionally minded, who said human sin is a matter of the will. It's a matter of choosing the evil instead of the good. And if you are baptized, particularly, you have that freedom to choose the good and turn away from evil. It has to do with the will. Augustine, on the other hand, taught a radically different teaching. He taught that the will is intrinsically diseased, if you like, and that its disease goes back to our very formation as human beings in bodies, that we were born in sin, and that because, in fact, original sin, he thinks, occurred with Adam and is transmitted actually genetically through the human species. It's transmitted, he said, through semen.
Here it was. Sex. The pagans had always worshipped fertility. The classical world had revered the beauty of the human body. Eroticism was natural and celebrated. Now, following Augustine, Christianity would connect sex with sin, guilt, and damnation, the body with corruption.
The whole of her bodily beauty is nothing less than phlegm, blood, bile, and the fluid of digested food. If you consider what is stored up behind those lovely eyes, the angle of the nose, the mouth, and the cheeks, you will agree that the well-proportioned body is merely a whitened sepulchre. St. John Chrysostom.
For St. Augustine, original sin and the fracture of mankind is written on the body, written in its curious functions, written in its privacy. With St. Augustine, we move away from the celebration of the body, so central to classical culture, so central to its sculpture and its art, to hiding the body, moving from a culture of celebration to a culture of shame. St. Augustine is key to the way, even now, we think about our own bodies, and still, to a certain extent, seek to hide them from a public gaze.
For Augustine, sex was only permissible in the confines of a Christian marriage.
In marriage, certainly, sex is legitimate. It can even be something really rather positive. What he will not let go of is the idea that it is always infected by the corruption of greed. And so it's only when it is sanctified by marriage and directed to the procreation of children that the balance works out, as it were, in favour of sex rather than no sex.
Adam and Eve and the innocence and blessing that God placed on the human race have been completely blighted by what he sees as the intervention of sin throughout the whole of human life. So that he says human sexuality as we know it was never blessed by God because it has been tainted by original sin. And his view of marriage is quite different. If you look at Augustine's view of marriage, he speaks of the best marriage is exemplified by the paradigm of Mary and Joseph. It has fidelity, it has sacrament, and it has offspring, and parenthetically, no sex.
Augustine admired Christ's mother, Mary, because she conceived without sex. That meant Jesus was born without original sin.